Welcome to Coffee and Crime, everyone. On this special episode, I will be delving deep into a case that has re-fascinated the nation with its new documentary on Netflix. If you've been living under a rock and don't know what I'm talking about, then get ready for an intense case. That of the Watts family and their killer, the father, Chris Watts. The Watts family, Shannon and Chris, and their two daughters, Bella and Celeste, seemed like your typical loving family on the outside. Shannon loved to post on social media, especially Facebook, all of the family events. And from these photos and videos, they looked like they loved each other so much and seemed like an average happy family. We should know, dear listeners, that things aren't always what they seem to be on the surface. There were secrets buried within this happy family. These secrets threatened to break them apart and ultimately led to murder. But why? That's what we'll be exploring today. So go grab a cup of coffee, curl up on the couch, and get ready for some true crime. Shannon had a rough life. Diagnosed with lupus, she never thought she would find a nice guy, and she wasn't even looking for a boyfriend at the time. But when she met Chris, she thought she had found her Prince Charming. He had sent her a friend request on Facebook in 2010, and that was how they started talking. They fell in love and got married in 2012, and soon after had their first daughter, Bella Watts, in 2013, followed by Celeste Watts in 2015. This was especially exciting for Shannon because she claimed to be infertile due to an illness. The family lived in a sizable 5-bedroom home in Frederick, Colorado, which they had purchased in 2013. Chris worked for, and I'm going to butcher this, Anadarko Petroleum, while Shannon worked as an independent representative for a marketing company called Level. In June 2018, Shannon told Chris she was pregnant. From the video that she posted on Facebook, recording telling Chris the good news, he feigned happiness. I say feigned because when I look back at the video in the documentary, his face had genuine surprise on it, but that was it. The surprise turned more into shock than happiness, in my opinion. They found out the baby was a boy and decided on the name Nico Lee Watts. Shannon was starting to be concerned about Chris's love for her after the baby announcement. She had every right to wonder what was wrong because Chris had actually started to cheat on her in July after he had met a woman named Nicole Kessinger at work that June. I found a list of emails between Chris and Nicole that show how their relationship quickly went from coworkers to friends to lovers. By the end of July, he had written her a very intimate card and a birthday card. It was clear that he wanted nothing to do with Shannon at this point and just wanted a relationship with Nicole. He was writing her poetry and talking about all of their firsts together. First time meeting, first kiss, all the firsts. Remember, this was while he was also with his pregnant wife. And she actually wasn't even in the area. She had flown herself and the girls to their grandparents' house for a birthday party for Cece. That was Celeste's nickname. Chris had allegedly told Kissinger that he was in the process of divorcing his wife. And when Shannon and the girls had left for the trip, he told Nicole the divorce had been finalized. So he was lying to her this whole time. Shannon was also suspicious of Chris at the time this was happening. If you look back at their text messages, you can see her concern for whether or not Chris even cared that the girls were so far away from him, or that she was so far away from him. Watts joins his family on vacation after leaving Nicole a love note on July 31st of that year. When they arrive home from vacation, Shannon notices how distant Chris is becoming and, not sure how to handle it, confides in her friends. We can see through text history that Shannon told a friend that they hadn't been intimate in a while. She suspected that Chris might be cheating on her at this time because she said, quote, "Where else would he be getting it?" On the 7th of August, There was a text sent to a friend by Shannon where she confided that Chris was, quote, scared to death about the third baby. He probably said this to her because he knew he wanted to leave her and he didn't know what to do with this new baby. On August 9th, Shannon told a friend that her and Chris had had their best talk yet, quotes. Not sure if this involved that message she sent to a friend that night before, though she wrote him a letter talking about how much she loved him and how she would fight for their marriage, even if his parents didn't like her. At the time, she was actually having issues with his parents because when she was away on that trip, his mother had brought pistachio ice cream to the birthday party for their daughter Celeste, who was allergic to nuts. Shannon had proceeded to yell at Cindy, Chris's mother, and claimed that she did not take Celeste's nut allergy seriously. Cindy responded by kicking Shannon out of the house, and Shannon hadn't spoken to Chris's parents since that altercation. Shannon thought that Chris might have been upset with this rift in the family relationship and figured that might be why Chris was ignoring her so much. It was clear that Shannon would do whatever it took to fix their crumbling relationship, and this did not bode well with Chris, who we know that was cheating on her at the time and clearly wanted to leave to be with another woman. That's why he was basically rejecting Shannon and probably why he told her he was scared of having another kid, because that child would tie him down even more to Shannon. Shannon left for her business trip after leaving this letter for Chris to find. That weekend, when he was supposed to be watching their kids, he hired a babysitter to do so he could sneak around with Kissinger, his mistress, who at the time assumed that him and Shannon were separated. On the 13th of August, at around 2 a.m., Shannon Watts, seen on her outside security camera that's next to her front door, returns home from her business trip, and after that, never to be seen again alive. At first, her concerned friend, the next day, called the police to try and do a wellness check on her since she had missed a morning doctor's appointment and wasn't answering her phone, and the friend had claimed that she hadn't been feeling well during their business trip. As seen through the body cam footage of the responding officer, we see the events of them discovering the house devoid of Shannon and the girls. Once Chris finally arrives, it takes him so long to get there, which is already quite suspicious. You'd think he'd be in a hurry to find out what's wrong with his pregnant wife and where his two young daughters might be. But anyway, Shannon's phone, purse, and medication that she needed to take were all there. Chris had even found her wedding ring on the bedside table. Though it was kind of a strange way that he found it, he just wandered into the room randomly, came out, and held out the wedding ring. It was quite odd. It wasn't like it was a shock to him to find. It was almost as if he already knew it was there. While they were looking through the house, the only thing that Chris claimed was missing were the girls' blankets that they slept with. At first, it seemed like Shannon had simply left and taken the girls with her, but why would she do that? Why wouldn't she take her purse with her, or her phone, or her medication? And she also didn't take her car. It was still in the driveway. So many red flags thrown right up right now. A neighbor with CCTV footage of Chris and Shannon's driveway, he had a motion sensor security camera that was angled at his driveway, but it also was angled at Chris and Shannon's driveway. He offered to help. And when reviewing the outside footage of the security cameras from that night from the neighbor's house, it showed footage of Chris parked in the driveway that morning, and it appeared that he was loading something into the truck. He was walking back and forth on the footage, and it was quite odd. It was as if he had to make more than one trip. Chris claimed that he was loading tools and such into the truck, but the weird thing was that after Chris left the neighbor's home, the police officer stayed behind to get the information of the neighbor, and the neighbor told him that what Chris said was completely inaccurate. He told the officer that he never loads stuff like that into his truck. He only ever goes to work with just a lunchbox and a laptop, so he wouldn't have had the need to walk back and forth so many times. And it was also very odd that he backed his truck halfway into the garage, as if he knew that that CCTV camera might have been there, as if he knew it would have caught whatever he was loading into the truck on footage. Very suspicious. One thing in particular that I personally noticed from the documentary that's out on Netflix right now was that from the footage of the body camera, we see that Chris's body language is very off from the get go. And I wasn't the only one to notice this. The friends and neighbor of Chris did too, the ones in the footage. When Chris leaves the neighbor's house while the officer is still there, the neighbor also remarks not just about the footage, but he remarks that Chris is acting very strange and not like himself at all. He was fidgeting, and he never fidgets the way he was doing it, teetering back and forth when he's nervous. That's completely out of character for him. Red flags should have been going off right then and there for the officer, and I'm sure they were, but to keep Chris talking and not suspicious that he was a suspect, they told the friend that many people react in different ways to situations like this. While that is true, body language can also be a big giveaway. This is what I'm saying personally, to a person's guilt, regardless of whether or not it's normal behavior for them. And the way Chris was reacting while they were searching the house, I noticed, was far from that of a husband and father concerned for his family's safety. Right from the moment he showed up to the house, he doesn't run straight up. He doesn't haphazardly park his vehicle to get out. He casually parks it on the side of the road, gets out of the truck, and then opens the passenger side door to take something out as well, to open the garage. Why wouldn't he have just opened the garage from his vehicle? Why did he have to do that circuit? Another thing that he also did before they even got inside of the house that was suspicious was it took him about a minute to let the police officer inside of the home, as if he remembered that he still had some of the crime scene to clean up and he didn't want the officer to see anything odd or suspicious, which is a huge red flag to me. He was too calm while they initially started searching the house. He didn't show any concern for himself or anything else until after the officer had radioed something in, which was also very suspicious. At that point, Chris had started to look nervous, he started to sweat, he started to do all of the signs that someone who's feeling a sense of guilt would do. I honestly urge you to watch the Netflix video that just came out, and you'll really see what I'm talking about. And there's also an amazing video made by a body language expert that you can really see more of an in-depth look at his body language and how guilty he was right from the get-go. And I'll leave a link to that video in the description as well. Chris tried to play off the situation like it was just Shannon leaving to go to a friend's house with the kids, that she would turn up in a day or two. The next day, when there was no sign of Shannon or the children, the FBI also joined the case to try and locate them. Now, it must have been on that day that they did a polygraph of Chris, because in an unseen turn of events, Chris Watts was arrested on the 15th of August for failing a polygraph test, wherein he was asked if he had harmed his family. Watts asked to speak to his father before he actually confessed what had allegedly transpired. At first, he had confessed that Shannon had been the one to kill their children after he'd asked for a separation, and in a fit of rage, he had turned to strangle her for killing her children. He then drove the bodies of his wife and children to the dump site at the remote oil storage site on his work property. The authorities uncovered the bodies of Shannon, Bella, and Celeste the next day. Shannon had been buried in a shallow grave, while the girls' bodies were found in oil tanks nearby. On August 21st, Watts was charged with 5 counts of murder, that of his wife and unborn child, and his 2 daughters, including an additional 1 count per child cited as death of a child who had not yet attained 12 years of age. and the defendant was in possession of trust, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body. The media was calling him a family annihilator, and in an essence, this is very true. Even though most family annihilators usually take their own lives at the end, Chris claimed, after confession, to have contemplated suicide from the guilt over what he had done, but I don't think he had those thoughts. He did this gruesome act because he wanted a fresh start, a new life with his mistress, Nicole. He didn't think about suicide. Watts would later confess to exactly how he had brutally murdered his family. So this next part's not for the faint of heart, and I will issue a trigger warning for anyone who is bothered by hearing about domestic violence or child abuse/murder, and I'm going to leave a timestamp for you to skip ahead to. Okay. Chris and Shannon had had an argument that resulted in Chris strangling Shannon in their bedroom. Their daughter Bella had walked into the bedroom at the time and asked Chris what was wrong with her mother. Chris responded by saying she wasn't feeling well and wrapped her in a sheet and dragged her body down the stairs with Bella and now Celeste watching. He loaded it into the back of the truck and put his daughters in the back seat. Watts drove his family to the worksite. On the way there, his daughters took turns sleeping in each other's laps. They really had no idea what was happening. They interjected every once in a while, asking, "Is Mommy okay? Where are we going?" He went to his workplace, to that remote location, where he buried Shannon in a shallow grave, and then turned to his daughters, who he must have deemed to know too much. He went up to Celeste and suffocated her first with her blankie and placed her body in an oil tank. He then came back for Bella to do the same, and he claimed Bella's final words to him were, "Daddy, no." Though the confession has recently been changed, I have found that Watts has written a letter to an author while in prison, where he confessed what exactly had transpired, supposedly. I mean, he's already confessed, so I don't know why he's changing the story already. He now says that he had been contemplating murdering his family for weeks at that time. He had actually tried to kill the girls first in their bedrooms, but they had woken back up after he had tried to suffocate them with pillows. So he had to take them to the dump location. So he did strangle Shannon at home and load her into the back of the truck, but he also did try to suffocate the girls before he left to go to the dump location. Either way, it's messed up. Words can't really express or explain how horrific it is to even imagine what must have been going through the minds of Bella and Celeste in those final moments. After seeing her mother be buried and her sister be murdered, I can't imagine what Bella was thinking. She trusted that man with her life, and he so easily took it for his own selfish desires. Guys, I'm genuinely curious to know what you think about this case. Tell me in a comment, send me a message. Let me know how you felt when you first heard about the case. I remember being on the news very clearly and how quickly they had caught him, and after watching the body cam footage now, I know why. He looked guilty from the start, and honestly, I don't believe he felt any empathy or sympathy for what he had done. He displayed no real emotions. It was true sociopathy. He didn't care. I'm interested to hear other people's opinions about the topic, so let me know. Thank you for joining me for this special episode on the Watts family murder case. Until next time. This was a special episode of Coffee and Crime. The normal upload schedule is every Monday at 7 a.m. here on YouTube. Please show your support for this channel by giving this video a like and subscribing if you already haven't. for more coffee and crime content. Join me next week as we talk about the true crime story behind the classic horror thriller movie, The Town That Dreaded Sundown.